Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 75 of Generation GC. Say Anything from the Young and the Hopeless, Good Charlotte's second album released in 2002. My name is Molly Hudelson, once again, and as always, I'm your host, as well as the producer, creator, and editor of this podcast. My guest today is Kaleigh from Good Charlotte, UK. On our last episode, we talked about Change from Good Charlotte. Next time, we'll be talking about a song from the Chronicles of Life and Death. Kaleigh is in her early 30s and lives in Manchester, UK. She's been a GC fan since she was about 15. She got into them after reading about the band on a forum in early 2002 and quickly became obsessed. Kaleigh started a website, Good Charlotte UK, to share the love and news that was relevant for a UK audience, just as the band started getting known on that side of the pond. Now, she is still just as obsessed as she was back then. I wanted to say that I love having guests from all around the world and from all different backgrounds on Generation GC. If English isn't your first language, that's okay. As long as you're comfortable holding a conversation in English, you're good to go. And different backgrounds doesn't just mean location or ethnicity. It means ensuring a varied gender and sexuality representation. It means representing fans of different ages, fans with their own unique life experiences of any sort. I want everyone listening to feel that they're represented on the show. I also want to keep mentioning blacklivesmatters.card.co, antisemitism.card.co, and anti-asianviolenceresources.card.co. I think it's important to continue educating ourselves on racism and racial issues and all sorts of injustice and how we can be better people. Finally, Generation GC stickers are here. If you do want a sticker, there's two things you can do. Number one, you can support the show on Anchor. Go to anchor.fm/generationgcpod and click support. And all that money goes right back into keeping the show going and making it the best that it can be. Helps me buy new headphones. It helps me print and ship the stickers. Helps me get, new cables, a laptop stand. I need notebooks to take physical notes sometimes. Helps out with all of that and makes a big difference. Number two, you can make a charitable donation to Maggie's. So Maggie's was recommended to me by Kaleigh, and it is an organization in the UK that runs centers next to cancer hospitals to provide a place of respite, essentially, for cancer patients and their families, just to have a time out and have some support while they're going through that time. If you want to learn more, you can go to maggies.org, and you can also make a donation there. That will be in the show notes as well. So you're going to send me a screenshot of your support of the show on Anchor or of your charitable donation to Maggie's, as well as your mailing address, and I will send you stickers. Make sure to follow Generation GC at Generation GC Pod, P-O-D, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, because sometimes I'll post other ways you can get some stickers as well. And you'll just hear all the updates about the show, as well as random things on my mind. Thank you for tuning in, and now on to episode 75.
So, Say Anything is track 10 on The Young and the Hopeless, Good Charlotte's second album released in 2002. Track 9 is Riot Girl. Track 11 is The Day That I Die. It was not a single. The song was written by Benji and Joel Madden. They did play it live a bit. If you go on to setlist.fm, and this is where the earlier days of setlist.fm, definitely not super accurate, only lists like 2 shows, but just even as I was searching, I found, a review, a blog about another show when they toured with New Found Glory where they played this song, so in 2003. So I think they did play it a fair bit in 2003. Maybe it wasn't like every show or anything. It definitely wasn't like a mainstay, but they did play it a bit. And there is a prior version of this song that also got played live that we will talk about later on. But yeah, this one's definitely a deep cut. It's, not a single, not on radio. Setlist.fm has it ranked number 80 of their most played songs. So I feel like the ranking of like how often a song was played is kind of more trustworthy than the number of plays it has, just because you can see it in comparison to other songs. But we do have a lot to get into with this song. But before we do that, Kaleigh, I want to help our listeners get to know you.
Ooh. Well, hello. My name's Kaleigh. As you can tell, I am British as well. So hello.
Well, Kaleigh, the first thing I like to ask everyone is, when did you first hear Good Charlotte, and what were your first thoughts on them?
Okay, cool. Yeah, I first heard them when I was 15, so I'm in my early 30s now. I used to use a lot of music forums online, and someone mentioned them on a forum I was on. So I just checked them out.
That'll do it.
Yeah, had a listen. It was obviously early 2002, so it was before The Young and the Hopeless. So I listened to a couple of tracks off the self-titled, and I just loved them straight away. I think when you just hear that intro to Little Things, it just brings you right in, doesn't it? So when you're 15 and you feel, no one understands me, and then this understands you, it really changes everything.
Well, I also like to ask everyone, have you ever heard Good Charlotte live? Have you ever seen Good Charlotte live?
I have. I've seen them quite a few times on pretty much every UK tour. My first one was their first ever UK headlining gig, which they played this little pub in London. I was 15 then. It was in the September before Young and Hopeless came out.
I think Chris Dowdy, who hosts the Wasting Time podcast, I want to say he was at that show too.
I think he was. I think we've tweeted about it.
I'm sure. Yeah.
But yeah, it was only about 200 people there, and it was sort of upstairs in a pub, and it was amazing. So.
Yeah, and then over time, Good Charlotte has certainly played some larger venues in the UK.
Yeah, so I've seen them from everything to that little pub. When they made their comeback with All Time Low, they played at Manchester Arena, which was huge, and that was very strange considering sort of the venues I've seen them sort of grow through. And their last UK show, they played Alexandra Palace, which was amazing as well.
Insane. Well, I want to talk to you about just living in Manchester. So did you grow up in Manchester?
No, so I am Northern. I'm from the north. So I grew up near Liverpool. So Liverpool was sort of the place I used to go a lot to go to sort of shows and go and buy all my goth clothes as they were. And I didn't come to Manchester till maybe a couple of, maybe I was about 17, 18 was when I first started coming to Manchester. So it was a bit further away. But Liverpool was a great place to go because we did get a lot of gigs there. Liverpool has Liverpool has some great gig venues because it has the university, has different size venues. And I just remember going to see loads of bands there. On their second ever UK tour, Good Charlotte played in Liverpool, which was amazing. A really big coup for Liverpool because they basically played London, Glasgow and Liverpool. So that was all they played. So it was amazing to see them there. So it was a good place to grow up. Growing up sort of in Britain, we had a lot of rock music magazines. We had things like Kerrang and Rock Sound, and Kerrang had a TV channel as well, but so much of it was focused on sort of more new metal and heavier stuff. So I have loads of old Charlotte press cuttings, and I flipped through an old copy of Kerrang from 2003, and you see how much of it is metal and US bands. So we didn't really have, the local press didn't really promote British bands very much. So in terms of the gigs I'd go to would be mostly American bands coming over here.
Yeah, I was curious about that. Which, by the way, is funny because Good Charlotte has literally played the most famous venue in the UK, I would argue, and one of the most famous in the world, Alexandra Palace, I think more than once. So when Good Charlotte got big, was there any other awareness of Blink-182, Green Day were already pretty big in the US? Were they pretty big over in the UK, or was it still very focused on new metal and things like that?
You were seeing the sort of Green Day and Blink quite a lot, and Sum 41. And then when Good Charlotte came, sort of Kerrang and the local Good Charlotte got really big in the UK, which I didn't expect, and I was really surprised by it. And then sort of everyone else that followed and other bands who were around suddenly became, got more attention. So other bands of pop punk like New Found Glory, Simple Plan, they were the bands I was going to see a lot, and they were suddenly everywhere as well. So it was really good because I feel that Good Charlotte sort of were a cusp of making more awareness that rock music isn't just new metal, and I love new metal, but there was a lot of new metal.
Yeah. Well, I guess it could be argued you had maybe a little bit of a hand in helping Good Charlotte get big in the UK. Back in 2002, you started a Good Charlotte website, Good Charlotte UK, goodcharlotte.co.uk. So what made you want to start a website? I mean, you said you were 15 at the time?
Yeah, I loved Good Charlotte, and I wanted more people to hear about them, and I would not see them in Kerrang. And at the time, I was sort of young and thought I'd play with learning HTML and stuff like that. So we were quite lucky that with our internet, we got some web space. My dad said, yeah, you can have it. So I just set it up and used to just play and taught myself loads of HTML bits to do it. And eventually now it's on WordPress, which is so much easier. But back then, I had to be on a computer, use the internet after 6, use the internet during the day because it costs more. I don't know if that was the same in America, but back then you had to wait till after 6 when it was cheaper.
Yeah, so we'd have cell phone plans. It would be cheaper nighttime. Yeah.
It was the same sort of thing. So you had to wait till after 6 to use the internet, and then I'd sort of update the website and just, it was before even like YouTube tutorials. So everything you learned, I had to sort of read on like tech forums and learn how to do it. So unfortunately I've forgotten most of my HTML now, but I can still, put a link in. So
WordPress, I was just talking to someone about potentially who like wants to start a blog. I've never set up a WordPress site really, but I use it for work. Like I update the website for my actual job, and that's WordPress. And when I wrote for Substream magazine, that's WordPress. And it's pretty easy to navigate, I found, in terms of, posting like news and things like that. And you have a lot of freedom, I think, in adding photos, videos, links, and all of that.
Yeah, you definitely do. And back in, when you were building stuff in HTML, I used to use this weird program called Microsoft, I think it was called Microsoft Front Page. So it came with the Office setup. So you could sort of dive into HTML, or you could do some basic sort of layout things, but I just preferred to do it myself.
I know I had a job a few years ago that I did not stay at long, but where I used Adobe Dreamweaver.
Oh yeah, I was never good enough to use Dreamweaver.
I didn't know what I was doing, and I remember having to because I was like marketing associate or something, and I remember talking to people in the sales department who would like kind of give me their feedback, and they would copy stuff from Dreamweaver into like a Word document, and I'm like, this doesn't help me. You're not making it easier.
Yeah, I tried Dreamweaver and found it really complicated, so I sort of gave up. And I think it is amazing now that, even with stuff like social media, and back then there wasn't really that much social media. Again, I think Facebook started when I was at university, I think. So even then, the main ways of doing it was websites and forums. You didn't have the same sort of ways of getting information out. So now it's amazing. You can just see something, send a tweet, or use the WordPress app on your phone.
Yeah.
Back then you had to actually come and turn on a physical computer.
I know. I know.
And really old.
I read about fan accounts now. Like, I remember reading probably in Cosmopolitan magazine about some girl that has, I think it was like a Kardashian fan account. And this girl has like 2 phones, and she's like scrolling through, like tracking all of these hashtags so she can be like the first to post whatever photo. So there's definitely like more of a pressure now in running any kind of fan account because it's just easier to post and update quickly.
Yeah, there definitely is. I think I don't know if I would have been as committed to doing it now as I was back then. But then I also think of all the stuff that's easier, of sharing things on social media. And, if at the time, a lot of the stuff that I used to post on our website was when Charlotte were on UK TV and stuff like that, or when they were in magazines. And easier to see it now if, Kerrang tweet, we're going to have Charlotte on the cover this week, and instead of having to go and buy them. Well,
and it's even easier nowadays to like add a music video to the website, right? Like,
yeah, I used to
that was pre-YouTube.
Yeah, I used to have them all the Charlotte videos like downloaded on my dad's computer, taking up all the room, and used to use. I can remember there was one website. It was called like punkrockvids.com, and I still see.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes on YouTube you see some, don't you, that have that logo in them.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my God, I haven't thought about that site in forever. Wow.
Such a blast from the past, isn't it? But that's how, especially because like the old Good Charlotte videos weren't on UK TV, and I think even when Good Charlotte became big, I don't think they ever played any of the videos from the first album. So that was how I saw them, spending hours downloading them.
So I was just looking through this site, and it looks like you had kind of taken a break, probably, I guess, around when the band went on hiatus. So when that happened, did you think you would start the site up again, or were you kind of just like, okay, this is it, whatever, I'm done?
I always kept the domain because I have a domain. So I was when they were on hiatus and it came up for renewal time, I was like, I'm going to keep it just in case because I'm an optimist. I was like, they will come back. They wouldn't just go without saying we're done forever. I don't think so. I felt that they would come back, but I knew that when they come back, it wouldn't be the same as when I first started the site. I wouldn't have to do the same level of detail because, they have their platforms and, gig stuff goes everywhere and people can see it so much easier. But I think it is still nice to have something UK focused. Yeah. Because it can be hard finding information like where can I buy this CD in the UK, especially when Even the Hopeless came out, for example. I ordered it from America and had to get it delivered over here. And then now.
Oh my God. Yeah. That's expensive.
Yeah. So I had to get that. I had to wait as well for it to get here and stuff like that. And I think I ordered the self-title from America as well. And then I remember a couple of months after Even the Hopeless came out, I remember going to a shop and seeing the newer artwork, the one without the band on the front in a UK shop. And I was like, wow, this is amazing.
Are you wearing a Maid shirt, by the way?
Oh, I am. Sorry.
Love it. I love it.
This is my in my spare room. This is where all my Good Charlotte stuff's kind of ended up.
I see on the wall behind you. Yeah.
There's my dolls.
Love it.
Level 27 shirt up there. Yeah, and I've got just a box of stuff I've collected over the years. I'm such a hoarder.
I love it.
Thing. One of the weirdest things I think I've kept from over the years is a pen that Benji used to sign something once. And I was like, why did I keep this?
He touched it. Yeah, right.
That's how mad I was when I was 16.
Yeah, right. Well, I think madder than, keeping a pen when you're 16, because 16-year-old girls are very enthusiastic, right? Is the fact that so many of us have remained so passionate about Good Charlotte 10, 15, 16 years later.
Yeah, I remember when, so I've been with my boyfriend for a decade now, but obviously he didn't, I think when we met Good Charlotte, we're on hiatus, in fact, so he didn't get to see the mad Good Charlotte side of me, and then I took him to the show with All Time Low, and there's just this picture he took of me, and I'm just like, and he's just despairing at me, basically, so yeah. It is that, and especially because I remember when one of the key things that I really loved when I got to Good Charlotte back in the day was the community around it, because the Good Charlotte forum on goodcharlotte.com itself is such an amazing forum. And I remember when Benji used to post every now and again, everyone would just go. It
was definitely Benji more than any of the others, I think, that were posting there. Yeah,
Benji posted, and it was good to sort of meet people. I remember at the first couple of Good Charlotte shows I went to in the UK, I did get to meet people off the forum and stuff like that, which was really cool. And I feel I've lost touch with a lot of them now, and I feel that's quite a shame.
Well, I think about this all the time. Someone mentioned on a recent recording gcnaptown.com, but I think about all the time how many of us met or talked to people on the forum, the forums, various fan websites in 2002 to 2005, lost touch with those people, and then how many of those people have collectively been on the podcast over the past year? I'm sure several of them, right? And I'm sure people are. I wonder if people will reconnect because they're like, oh my God, I remember this first. Who knows? But Kaleigh, I want to go into Say Anything.
Let's do it.
So we connected on Twitter, and I just I love having people from all over the world. I think you're our second UK guest, following Chris from the Wasting Time podcast. Why did you want to talk about Say Anything in particular?
It's one of those songs, I know, because you mentioned it in the intro, they don't play it live very often, and it's just one of those songs that I'd always love to hear live, and it just, even now, I listened to it this morning, and it still gives me the shivers, and I just think musically, the sort of arrangement of it's just one of those classic songs that it's like a proper deep cut that deserves more love. That's why I want to talk about it. And when you talk about comparing it with Time After Time as well, which is an amazing, amazing to see how they've developed. Because remember the first time hearing In the Hopeless and being like, oh, that's Time After Time, but it's a different song, and
yeah,
it's, and I think it's a really cool way that I don't think they did that with any other songs. I don't think there's any other older songs that they sort of recycled and reused again. So I'd really love to, it's one of the things I'd love to ask them, why did you do it again? And
Yeah.
What do you like about both versions? And
I think about that too, because the EP that this was on, another EP, the other songs on it like ended up on the self-titled, right? So listeners, in case you're not familiar, Good Charlotte put out another EP in 1999, and there was a track on there called Time After Time, which was essentially reworked into what we now know as Say Anything. And it is interesting to me, like, the fact that they kept this in their back pocket, right? They were like, all right, we're not throwing it out, but I don't know. Could you have heard, I don't want to say no, I couldn't have heard this song on the first album, because maybe it could have fit on the first album, but I would be really curious. Like, if I could ever sit down with, one of the twins and ask them all of my unanswered questions, dreams, right? That's one of the things I'd probably ask, like, so why keep this around? Like, what was the backstory there?
It'd be really interesting, wouldn't it? Especially because Time After Time feels more like a love song, whereas I feel Say Anything feels like a falling out of love song.
Yeah.
Relationship. So I wonder if that's part of it. I wonder.
Maybe. Yeah. I guess. Yeah, and the whole falling out of love thing, which let's talk about kind of our interpretation of the song. Because I think the falling out of love sort of theme relates to kind of the overall theme of The Young and the Hopeless more than like a proper love song. So yeah, what's your interpretation of this song?
I see it as sort of one person saying to the other one, aware that they're growing apart, but one person saying to the other one, this is why we should stay together, here's all the good times, but then them saying it, and then the other person is not responding, and they're like, say anything, so that's how I see it as a song. How do you see it?
I think I see it very much about just wanting answers from someone, like knowing that it's possible that a breakup is going to happen, but not necessarily being there yet, right? Like waiting for the other person to tell you, I want to break up, or I don't love you anymore, or I'm mad at you and here's why. And trying to, I think like you said, kind of recount all those positive experiences, laughing till 3 a.m. and all of that. I feel like at the point of writing this song, maybe there has already been some kind of fight or falling out, and the person singing this song is like trying to hang on.
Yeah, I think that's, that does feel like, when you listen to the full song, doesn't it? That sort of feels like the message that you take away from it.
Yeah. Do you think, because I've had various thoughts on this over the years, do you think this song is about a romantic relationship, or is it about like a friendship, like platonic?
See, that's interesting, because I've always assumed it was about a relationship, but then if you think about, the references 3 a.m. laughing and stuff like that, it isn't a, remember all the times we kissed. It is remember all the good times we spent together. So that wasn't something I thought about, but that is a really interesting point on it, isn't it?
Well, and I had written down like my favorite line from this song is, some say that time changes, best friends can become strangers. So to me, that's a point to, this is about like a friend that you've grown distant from, right?
Yeah, that's, I sort of took it as like your partner is your best friend. So I sort of read it could be like that, and it could just be a shorthand, but that would make a lot of sense, wouldn't it? Because there aren't references to romance in it, is there? There's more references to good times.
Yeah, I mean, but it could be about romance. Let me look at the lyrics now, because I want to like review it. I used to know the sound of a smile in your voice. I mean, that to me sounds like maybe a little more familiar than you might be with a friend.
Yeah.
But also, if you've been friends with someone for a long time, like, when they're happy, what their voice sounds like when they're mad. But then you have some say that time changes, best friends can become strangers. Yeah, it's I don't know. I don't think it's really clear if it's about like a friendship or a romance.
I guess it's been left open to interpretation, hasn't it? Because I think of it maybe as like, maybe it's because in my head it's so intrinsically linked with Time After Time, and I would wonder, someone
Sure.
who listened to The Young and the Hopeless and heard Say Anything first, wonder if they'd feel the same. But like, Time After Time is very much a love song, you know. It's got, you know, you're all I wanted to find, I'd drive the whole night through to spend it with you. And then you sort of the bridge with I'm falling, and I took that as like falling in love, whereas in Say Anything it seems like falling the other way, doesn't it?
Right, like falling out, which yeah. But yeah, like I think about that in terms of the reworking of the song from Time After Time to Say Anything. Was it like, yeah, like I'm so curious about that process. Like, was it like, okay, well, some other thing happened that I want to kind of rework because it fits the similar song? Was it, okay, we have this album that talks about certain themes and we want this song to fit that? And I don't know. I'm so curious about that process. Like,
I know, I'd love to ask them. A couple of years ago I did actually interview Joel, which was really cool when Generation X came out, but Generation RX, sorry. But I did not ask him that question, and I should have done.
Right. That's you know, that's kind of why I started the podcast, was because I was like, I have so many like intensely detailed questions about Good Charlotte songs and albums and band history and lore. And I'm like, there's no way I would ever get them to sit down for like 7-hour-long interviews about, you know, one about an hour-long interview about each album. Like, so let me just like do that all myself. Maybe they'll come on and answer some questions and kind of review our theories someday. That would be pretty fun. But yeah, like because I interviewed Billy, and I think you linked this on your site. I interviewed Billy around Generation RX, and I remember going into him being like, I have all of these questions about all the other albums too, but I need to just keep my questions on this album.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was with me, because it was like I was writing it I wasn't writing it for the music press, I was writing it for mainstream publications, so I couldn't really go into the deep cuts. Right.
Right.
But I would love to know. One of the things that I'm really hoping for is that next year is obviously 20 years of being the Hopeless, and I would love a full tour of that album. You know, I know other bands that, like New Found Glory did it a couple of years ago with Sticks and Stones, and that was amazing. I'd love them to play every song on the album, including Say Anything, and tell us about it. That's what I'd like.
I don't think they will, because I think they've said they're not anniversary tour people.
No, realistically, I don't think they will. And I don't think they would play Say Anything again, because it is so far back in the back catalogue, and there's so many other songs and albums that they would play. But
it's
a
also
girl can
like,
dream.
I know, right? It's also like a slower song. And not to say that means it wouldn't translate live, but I feel like in general, their sets are like pretty high energy, and then you mix in songs like, you know, Hold On, which are super emotional, but also like relatively high energy. Like Hold On's kind of a ballad, and this is just kind of like a slow, chill vibe.
Yeah, because obviously Hold On has the sort of chorus where, you know, it's heavier in the chorus, where Say Anything, you'd have to be in the mood for it. And if it's people who are not as obsessed with Good Charlotte as we are, they might not enjoy seeing it live in the same way that we would, I guess. Right. If they want to go out, party, have a good night, and then play this, you know, sad love song.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, like I did, you know, I tried to find backstory about this song, and I didn't really find any beyond the Time After Time thing, you know. I read through, like, I went through my notes for every other Young and the Hopeless episode, because I know I had some like really good like old interviews, and none of them mentioned Say Anything or Time After Time. So I don't know, maybe there were interviews that I just couldn't find in like a few hours of Googling. maybe there were interviews that were print, you know, I don't know, but there doesn't seem to be much backstory on the internet. But again, this is like a deep cut, so that's not surprising.
It is on their because you could always think like, oh, maybe it's a song they don't resonate with anymore, or they don't want to talk about. But it is on the Spotify Good Charlotte Deep Cuts playlist, I noticed the other day. So
I love the Spotify, the Good Charlotte Deep Cuts playlist. The first time I went over to my boyfriend's apartment before we had made it official, he was cooking dinner, and I was like, oh, can I put on some music? So he showed me how to connect to his Google Home, whatever, and I put on the Good Charlotte Deep Cuts playlist because I was like, I can't just play like the anthem. Like, I need to play, the deep cuts. And so he got, the stories of each deep cut as we listened. That was how I knew it was going to work.
I do that to my other half because I've got the Young and the Hopes on vinyl, which is actually really rare. I didn't realize how rare it was until I saw one go on eBay for about 150 quid last week. So I like to sit there and play it through with my boyfriend, and he's like, obviously he knows like the main songs, and make him listen to the deep cuts, like Say Anything and say, what do you think of this? He's more of a metalhead, so it's not his vibe at all. But
well, do you have any memories or stories that you want to share about Say Anything?
I don't have any specific memories, but it just reminds me, like, hearing it for the first time, and that excitement of your favorite band releasing an album, but in when they're not in your country and they're not very famous in your country, and being able to talk about it on the internet with people in the way that there wasn't anyone in real life I could really talk about, and I can still just remember that excitement of getting it. I used to order some stuff from like Hot Topic as well, which was always exciting. I got level.
Do you have Hot Topic in the UK?
No, we don't. We kind of so where I grew up in Liverpool, there was sort of like this alternative shopping centre called Quiggins, which is deceased now, unfortunately, it's gone. But there's one here in Manchester called Affleck's. So they're kind of, and then I'm assuming there's ones in other UK cities, but like sort of it's sold all your band t-shirts and your massive baggy jeans that we all used to wear when we were 15.
Oh yeah.
So it was, I just always remember that the first Good Charlotte gig so that was in the September, obviously just before Young and the Hopes came out. I probably should say this, but the album had leaked online, and I did download it. But I had bought it as well.
Yeah.
So I did know the songs when I went to see them and stuff like that, and even though it wasn't out, and I just remember it's just so the Young and the Hopes is the whole album is so intrinsically linked with that period and going to that first show. And it was a very weird show because we went I'd never really been to London before, and my dad drove me and my friend, and we were walking to the venue, and we got lost because it was again before Google Maps. So we were trying to find it, and we walked down the street and we bumped into Billy and Paul, and it was
all right. I guess we're close now.
Very surreal, very surreal. And then I got a photo stuff, and then had to ask them where the venue was, and then
that's hilarious.
Walked to it, and then bumped into Benji and Joel as well. So
incredible.
So it's just that era. Like I'm really glad that I've loved Good Charlotte for as long as I have, and I have these amazing memories. And because I read somewhere that someone said that the music you like when you're 15, 16 is probably what you're going to like for the rest of your life. And
yeah, it's going to stick with you.
It's probably true. I've got a Good Charlotte tattoo, so I'm stuck with them for life now, I think.
Yeah. I think my biggest memory about this song is so I bought this album at the end of 6th grade. It came out beginning of 6th grade, and then I didn't find them till the end of that school year. And then 7th, 8th grade, I dealt with a lot of Mean Girls, the typical stuff everyone deals with when you're that age. And so I just remember really feeling like this song resonated me. I was like, they get it. They get it. Best friends become strangers. They get it.
It does fit, doesn't it? How old is 6th grade? I don't know.
That would be 11.
11. Okay, cool. Yeah. So you were proper high school. Yeah. Which is, and I think high school is pretty rubbish for most people, I think. And especially teenager, hormones, friends. I went to a girls' school, so everyone's horrible to each other. So so it's always nice to have that escape and that, because exactly. I liked bands like Linkin Park and stuff like that, but it never related in the same way that Good Charlotte always have.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'd like to talk about other Good Charlotte songs a track kind of relates to. I mean, we already talked about the obvious Time After Time, but I feel like that almost doesn't count as a separate song. But what comes to mind for me is Anxiety from Greatest Remixes, because that's all about how the lack of communication in that song causes you anxiety, and this song feels more like sad versus anxious. But that comes to mind for me. Are there any that come to mind for you, like with similar themes?
No, I was having to think about this, and I didn't really think of any, because it is for Charlotte, it's quite different, isn't it? So compared to like a lot of their other stuff. And I guess you could say, I was listening to some of the Madden Brothers stuff, and there's sort of similar themes there with like Brixton.
Oh, okay.
Very similar theme with Brixton, with like, when you called me up, I was on the way to Brixton, and that's again that sort of relationship, falling apart. Well, not necessarily falling apart, but drifting apart maybe. And that was the first one I could think of that I felt was a similar sort of theme to Say Anything.
Yeah.
Another deep cut.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, because I don't know about in America, but the Madden Brothers album isn't on UK Spotify.
It's not on it's not on Spotify here. Yeah. It's on YouTube, and we kind of talked about it because we did an episode on Empty Spirits with Alex Silva. She's lovely, total sweetheart. No, we didn't come to any conclusions, but my guess was it might be something to do with the label.
I would assume so.
Rights and things like that. Yeah.
Such a shame.
Yeah. Well, I want to go through some fan and critic response to this song. So the first piece I've pulled, we have referenced, I can't remember what episode, but I know we've referenced this before. Good Charlotte Revival, The Chronicles of a Young and Hopeless Love Affair by Gwara Shekar. I hope I'm saying that right. On Medium. And she's just kind of talking about growing up and Good Charlotte becoming not cool. Cardiology comes out in 2010. I am 14. Pundits have retrofitted alternative/punk into a less cool outfit known as pop punk. They might as well have stuck an advisory label, only to be listened ironically. Grow up, you tasteless idiot. My musical pretensions, enforced by insidious influences of music writers, chip away at my alt-punk core. I feel guilty for giving into the still of the nights, beg for Time After Time, the demo precursor to the Young and the Hopeless' Say Anything. And she's talking about like taking down her autographed Benji Madden poster or canceling her AP and Kerrang subscriptions, which is a relatable experience, I think, for a lot of people, because it definitely became very not cool to like Good Charlotte.
Definitely.
Sputnik Music gave the album 3.5 out of 5, and they gave this song 2.5 out of 5. They said, I don't listen to this song much anymore, but when I first heard it, it was pretty cool. It's one of the worst on the album, but it has some alright lyrics, and Joel's vocals have improved a bit from the last track.
That's interesting as well, because I remember when the Young Hopes came out, there was a lot of talk on the forums of saying, is that Joel on the first verse? It doesn't sound like Joel.
Yeah. It's like I was reading through all the comments on song meetings, and a lot of people think it's either Benji or Billy. I think it's Joel, though.
I think it's Joel, because there was a lot of talk about being Billy, but I know there were some old sort of demos of what was his band called? What was Billy's old band called?
Overflow.
Overflow. I was thinking Overcome, but that's another old guitar song.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there were some demos, and you could, if you listen to them, it definitely wasn't Billy singing.
And you can, I mean, you hear Benji singing a lot on The Day That I Die, and his voice is, I think, a little raspier than Joel's, maybe a little deeper. And like, obviously the first verse of this song is pretty deep register, but it sounds like Joel, and like Joel is just singing far lower than you're kind of used to.
Yeah, that's what I think. Maybe that's part of why they don't want to do it live. Maybe Joel doesn't like singing.
Maybe.
Really. Because it is so different from his usual style, isn't it?
Yeah. Pop Matters, or we've talked about this Pop Matters review so many times, and I will continue to mention it. Good Charlotte plunged headfirst into poodlehead spandex rock cliches, only with a lame us against them sentiment that comes off sounding like an installment of Chicken Soup for the Punk's Soul. Hold On and Say Anything are sappy, idiotic, more emo than punk, sensitive guy tunes that sound like the maudlin ravings of hypersensitive coffeehouse loiterers.
Ouch.
It was, I mean, like, that's kind of like the meanest possible way to like describe exactly what they're doing. You know what I mean? And that's why like I continue to refer to this review, because it's like a derogatory, it's phrased in a very mean and derogatory and cynical way, but they're not like they're saying the truth. They're just being very mean about it, I think.
Just twisting it.
Yeah.
I think it is that sort of thing, that there was an era when it was, you know, cool to hate Good Charlotte. And
yeah.
A lot of I remember there was like a lot of stuff in Kerrang where there was a lot of reviews that were very positive. And I just remember reading this one live review where they were like, they went for this old cliche, Bad Charlotte. Oh, brilliant, as the headline.
I know, right. Whenever I see Bad Charlotte, I'm like, do you think you're the first person that wrote that?
Come on, guys. Music Press, you know, it's been done.
Coast to Coast, a band called Coast to Coast, did an A to Z interview on New Noise magazine, and the vocalist Kei, K-E-I, I don't know how to say that, Highland, cited this song as a song that made them want to make music. I love that.
That's really lovely. There we go.
Punktastic mentioned it in their 15-year retrospective, and I actually really liked this take because I hadn't thought of this so much. Our first inklings of an awareness of our mental health were reinforced with the likes of Say Anything and lyrics like, when will you laugh again? Laugh like we did back when we made noise till 3 a.m. and the neighbors would complain. Amazingly, we felt nostalgic as young as 16 and looked back at the fun we used to have. Right, because I guess that maybe it's not about a falling out, maybe so much as you're watching someone just slip into depression and lose themselves, which frankly would translate quite well into the next song.
That is a different take. I hadn't thought about that one.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I really like Punktastic. They do some really good stuff. So
they do.
That's a good talking point.
So we're going to read the YouTube comments, and I just want to say big hugs to everyone because there were a lot of people just kind of, you know, telling their life stories here. Sarcastic Cool said, some say time changes, best friends become strangers. Some songs parallel your life so much at times it is painful. Anna Therese Junio said, to the one who introduced me to this song, I almost fell in love with you, ... if only, ... Oh. Frank Garcia said, this could almost be a Third Eye Blind song. I see it. I could see it.
I don't really... Is Third Eye Blind, they do Semi-Child Kind of Life? Is that Third Eye Blind?
Yeah.
I don't know any of their songs.
Listen to Jumper.
Okay.
Yeah. And Motorcycle Drive-By, I think is the other one that's coming to mind. But yeah, like that whole album, I could kind of see it. Yeah, almost. Midsummer Wolf Moon said, memories. Like so many of you, this song reminds me of a distant best mate. Radiant Ravi said, I love this song. This song goes to all my ex-boyfriends that I really miss. Banan Flugen said, one of my favorite bands when I was like 8 or something. It's sad that they're so lame nowadays. On songmeanings.com, a lot of people were comparing it to Time After Time, talking about like the origins. Again, a lot of people, you know, sharing their stories. One person saying they can't wait till their ex-boyfriend hears it. Waste My Days said, wow, what an incredibly beautiful song. I'm a huge Jimmy Eat World fan, and GC sounds a teensy bit like them in this song, especially in the harmony in the last down in the break. What a completely gorgeous song. It's like a cross between Seasons, best song in the world by GC, and Change. The strings in the background are striking. Oh man, this song is beautiful.
That's a great, yeah. I can see why you'd say it has the Jimmy Eat World influence sort of sound to it, but yeah, definitely right about the strings. Like, strings do give you all the feels and all the shivers, don't you?
There was someone, I wish I could remember the outlet, but there's a review that I've cited that talks about this album as Jimmy Eat World with something to say. So, Grace Fall said, fuck Good Charlotte and fuck pop punk and, fuck, they called out a specific user. You guys should listen to good music or at least check out bands like 7 Minutes to Say Goodbye. Okay.
I don't know who that band is.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that their mates band? I don't know.
Probably. Or their own band, yeah.
Oh,
Genu84 said, top song, you could relate it to not just your girlfriend, boyfriends, but best friend too. Anybody who has had a fight with their best friend, which was major, would agree.
You can see that there are a lot of people who it really resonates with, kind of the song, and I think that's really nice if you compare it with the fuck Good Charlotte shit reviews. Yeah,
right. Yeah, I mean, basically the comments, like, I had a hard time kind of narrowing it down because all the comments, it's a lot of people saying, I relate to this and this is how it relates to me. And this reminds me of my boyfriend. This reminds me of my ex-boyfriend. This reminds me of the best friend I don't talk to anymore. And like, yeah, I get it,
It relates to a very sort of human experience, doesn't it? That most people will have had the one that's got away, whether that is a friend or a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Yeah, so interesting.
Exactly. It's a very human experience. And that leads us into one of our closing questions, Kaleigh, but how has this song held up for you over time?
I think for me, it's one of those songs that I can still, I still love it. And, if you've, listened to the same album for the last 15 years, you could say that you might get bored of some songs or you might skip some. But Say Anything is never a song that I've ever wanted to skip. I've just always wanted to sit there and listen to it. And it's still an absolute banger in terms of that. And especially now, because if you see on sort of TikTok and stuff, there's a lot of a revival of the sort of emo pop punk starting up and that sort of thing. And I would hope that people who start listening to Charlotte now might give Say Anything a go as a song to listen to. It could be, it's not grabbing you like the anthem. It's not one of them instantly, boom, I want to listen to that and dance. But I think it's worth listening to, and I think it's a song that has something to say. And as we've mentioned, it does relate to every sort of human experience. So I think it still sounds great.
Yeah, and it's still like a classic Good Charlotte song because that theme of just like kind of growing up, growing apart, I think is very pervasive and through their music. So yeah, this has definitely held up super well for me too, because I can like think about just different situations it applied to over the years and all that.
Yeah.
Well, Kaleigh, what has Good Charlotte meant to you over the years, and how has that changed?
Good Charlotte has always meant a lot to me, and it's always been, I guess for me, it's part of my identity, I guess, which is really sort of, maybe that's a bit of a lame thing to say, but I just remember
no, not lame at all. Not lame at all, and you're not the first person to say it.
In college, like people at college used to call me the Good Charlotte girl, so there we go. And now, especially as a grown-up with a grown-up job in a grown-up office, I've sort of owned it, and I will go to work and mention it and show off I've got a tattoo, or will have the tattoo visible and stuff like that. And I think it's always gonna be something that's important to me. And I think even more so now, because when they went on hiatus, I think one of them things that I can still remember where I was when I heard they gone on hiatus. So it was at work, an old job, and I was like in tears and and after we've lost them, when they came back, I really appreciated them so much more. And especially with like Youth Authority was great because it felt like a Young and Hope throwback, and then Generation RX was sort of like we want to say stuff, we want to we've got issues to talk about, and it just felt that I've grown with Good Charlotte.
I love that. Kaleigh, do you have any last words about Say Anything, about Good Charlotte, or about yourself?
No, just that Good Charlotte forever.
Amazing. Well, I update the Generation GC and Friends Spotify playlist with every episode. So I'm going to put Say Anything on there. And then I would love from you just a recommendation, anything you've been listening to lately and enjoying.
Oh, a non-GC track?
Yeah, anything that's not Good Charlotte.
Anything. So there's a really great British brand called Creeper. Who
Yes.
I love. Their singer's just moved to Manchester, so I've seen him out like a couple of times as well. So I'm hoping there'll be more tours. So if you want a sort of sad song in the theme of Say Anything, Misery by Creeper.
Okay.
Really good. I'd recommend that. It's a brilliant song, and that whole album, that song is sensational. So go and listen to Creeper.
Yeah, Creeper's great. Kaleigh, this has been so great. Where can people, keep up with everything Good Charlotte UK?
So on Twitter, @Good Charlotte UK, or the website is goodcharlotte.co.uk.
Amazing. And do you have an Instagram for the site too?
Yeah, I do. Instagram same, @Good Charlotte UK.
Perfect.
And there's also a Facebook page, which I don't really update very often. So.
Yeah. Perfect. Kaleigh, thank you so much. This is so fun. Listeners, thank you for tuning in. My name is Molly Hudelson. Once again, and as always, I've been your host, as well as the producer, creator, and editor of this show. Last week, we talked about Change from Good Charlotte. Next week, we'll be talking about a song from the Chronicles of Life and Death. Please make sure to subscribe to the show wherever you listen. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please rate and leave a review. But honestly, y'all, the most important thing, tell your friends. Spread the word. Let's make the Generation GC fam as big as it can be. Thanks for tuning in.